Now, if you were a kid in the late 90s and early 90s, you'll know who our next guest is. And 23 years since she first hit our screens on the iconic children's TV programme Blue Peter, Konnie Huq is not slowing down.
Yes, after earning her stripes making TV for kids, she's dipped her feet into children's literature with her second book titled Cookie and the Most Annoying Girl in the World. Konnie Huq joins us live on the line from London. A very good morning to you, Konnie.
Morning, Konnie.
Good morning. Hello.
A very good morning, Konnie. We're holding your book in our hands and we've been chatting about it and looking through it over the break. It's a gorgeous book, Cookie and the Most Annoying Girl in the World. Lots of illustrations. These words and pictures are all yours, Konnie.
Yes. Originally, when I set off to write a book, I wasn't going to put any pictures in it. But Cookie is quite a chaotic, a 9-year-old, and she sees the absurd in everyday life. She finds comedy in everything, and she often goes off on tangents and has flights of fancies and crazy head thoughts. So all the pictures, the little comic strip pictures inside, they're everything that's going on in her mind. And then all the words and text are the actual narrative of what's happening in her adventures and capers. Chaos seems to follow her about everywhere she goes.
Yeah, she doesn't need a very simple, boring life. This Cookie. This is the second book in a trilogy. Would that be right, Konnie?
Yes, that's right. So the first book, which came out last year, was called Cookie and the Most Annoying Boy in the World. So in the interest of equality, this is the most annoying girl in the world now. The first book was centred all around Cookie's quite into science and knowledge and learning. Her and her best friend collect sort of lists of long words. And so there's lots of sort of, I call it stealth education in the books. So children, it's like hidden vegetables in a pasta sauce. Children will just think they're getting a yummy pasta dish. They think they're getting a really funny romp. But really, I've sewn in lots and lots of sort of good education, but it's all subliminal. They won't know they're getting it at all. And they'll just think they're reading something which is essentially Bridget Jones meets Wimpy Kid. The second book is all themed around the planet and saving the environment, and Cookie and the gang are getting all eco-friendly.
Very good.
It's a lovely way to learn, actually. As you say, they don't realise they're learning at all. They're just laughing and having fun at it. And lots of different scenarios and possible problems that make children think about these scenarios themselves, Konnie.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always thought that if I wrote a book, you know, during my time on Blue Peter, we started up the Blue Peter Book Awards. And so I interviewed loads of authors, J.K. Rowling, Jacqueline Wilson. I was often on the judging panel. And ever since, I've been asked, like, would you write a book? Would you write a book? And I thought, if I wrote a book, I don't want to just write another book. I want to do a book that does something different or add something new to the market. So the book really will get kids thinking, but not realising they're thinking. And also they're quite interactive, as well as the comic strip pictures. There's loads of things in the book that you can find in the back, in the appendix. So there's like activities and bits and pieces that the kids can try out for themselves. Because I always used to love choose your own adventure books. My kids loved Where's Wally, and books that sort of add a fourth dimension can help draw children into reading. It's so important to get primary school kids into reading, because if they don't do it in their primary years, then books become this alien thing and they'll never become readers. And kids that read go further and do better in life.
And Konnie, was writing, was it always an itch that you wanted to scratch, or had you any grow towards doing it at all?
I mean, I always enjoyed sort of writing and telling stories, and this character actually I had in my head from when I was actually at school, and I used to sort of babysit and look after my young cousins or other sort of family members or extended family, and so I'd tell them stories about this character called Cookie. So I she was always in the back of my mind, essentially. And now as well, we're in times when I think people are more aware of inclusivity and diversity. So there's lots of sort of themes of stealth woke in there as well, but not in a preachy way. It's all very secondary to the story. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something that I definitely think I wanted to do, but I don't think necessarily I would have had the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned equality and diversity in there. You felt growing up a little bit of an outsider at times, Konnie. Is that fair to say? Because you weren't necessarily culturally represented.
Yeah, and I think we all do have situations, especially kids, where you feel a bit other or a bit of an outsider. You know, when I was growing up, I grew up in the West London suburb, where, you know, there weren't that many ethnic minorities sort of represented around me in books or on TV and so on. But I think it's in all different aspects of life. You know, your skin color is something that defines you, as is, I don't know if you're into train spotting, or if you have, I don't know, blonde hair or ginger hair, or, you know, your hobbies. There's so many things that define us, and our culture is one of them. Our religion is one of them. But Cookie is a regular 9-year-old girl like any other. You know, I always describe her as Bridget Jones meets Wimpy Kid, and that's just another sort of string to her bow. You know, her best friend is black, but you wouldn't actually know it, particularly from reading the book. Her best friend has 2 dads, but it's none of this is sort of that important in the story. It's just another thing that, you know, is a defining characteristic of that character. And I think it's really important for kids to be subjected to everything in sort of books and literature and on TV that they're subjected to in real life anyway. And you have to be it to see it. So everyone needs to feel represented. And, you know, books are one thing that helps empathy, and they help break down sort of snobbery and barriers, and you could put yourself into someone else's shoes and transport yourself to new worlds. And so they're really, really important.
Well, speaking of transporting to new worlds, Connie, Blue Peter did that so incredibly well. An iconic show, and you were the longest serving presenter on that show.
Yeah, you know, I always say Blue Peter was woke before woke was even a thing. We had a Blue Peter garden for kids that, you know, lived in flats and might not know about sort of the environment and gardening. We did Blue Peter appeals before Comic Relief, you know, and children in need were even a thing to raise money for people, you know, more deprived. Blue Peter really was sort of ahead of the curve. And, you know, I think the world is almost catching up now. And they were the sort of brilliant years of my life, and loads of my experiences I've packed into the books.
Connie, the book is receiving love from everywhere. If you look at the back of the book, even we have the likes of David Baddiel, David Williams, Dawn French. Dawn French, I think, sums it up. She said, if I was 9 years old, I'd want Cookie to be my very best friend. I love her. I mean, when you're getting praise from the likes of David Williams, whose books have sold in the millions, that must be very pleasing to you to see that Cookie's getting out there and she's loved.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really daunting writing a book and putting things from in your head onto a paper that will go into other people's heads. So there's always that worry that, you know, what if this is absolute rubbish, and what if no one likes it? And, you know, the fact that sort of David Williams and Dawn French are big in the comedy world, I really wanted to write a book that was funny. And there's a lot of snobbery in kids' books towards books that are funny, which is so wrong, because we want our kids to have a good sense of humour. You know, we want them to grow up and, you know, be able to laugh at things, and anything that draws kids into reading is important, which is
well, that's the key, as you say, Connie. It's engaging them and getting them to open that door, to open the key to reading. Listen, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, and the best of luck with the book, Connie. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Cheers.
Take care. Now, Cookie and the Most Annoying Girl in the World is available now in all good bookshops nationwide.